All right, everybody, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Give me just a second. So our next speaker of today is going to be Sean McMann. He is an Air Force veteran. He has a really interesting story. He's Emmy nominated media production and has a really cutting edge video technology. A state champion in judo. He has a lot of really fun things in his story. So I'm excited to hear from him today. So Sean, why don't you start off by telling everybody kind of your little introduction and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Hello, everyone. I was asked to participate, and I immediately said yes because this transition from the military to a civilian career happened for me a long time ago. But I tell you what, just the thought about it brought back some powerful feelings about what a challenge it was. And this is going to date me, but that was in the early '90s. I spent 5 years in the Air Force, stayed overseas for 5 years, didn't come back until my time was up, which was a shock in and of itself because a lot changed in the U.S. in half a decade. I felt like an alien, but I have been successful transitioning from the military to civilian career success. And luckily, I've gone through the looking for a new job trials and tribulations several times in my career. I think I'm up to about 6 or 7 different companies I've worked for since the early '90s. And I did collect a lot of tidbits along the way that I'm going to share here. I'm going to share some slides. Let's see here. Share. Oh, forgive me. I have to tell it it's okay. Good Lord. Oh, no.
What's going on, Sean?
Maybe
Anything I
you
can do to
can.
help?
Well, it says I've got to quit and come back. I'm going to do that because I do want to share these slides. Is that okay? I'll be right
Yeah.
back. It, it's
Okay, sounds good.
it's a setting that requires me to back out and come back in. Sorry
Okay,
about
no problem. You're all right. Mary, when he gets back, could you please just give him a co-host so he's able to share?
that. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm loading all of these AI stuff I don't care about right now. Wow.
You have co-host now, so you should have no problem sharing.
All right, we've got my desktop there.
Beautiful. We see it.
Forget how to close this toolbar at the top.
You can just move it. You can just grab it and drag it down. I usually put it at the bottom of my screen. A little
Ah,
easier to see everything up there.
nice. Okay. Somebody let me know if they can see the slide.
We can see it. It's beautiful.
All right, that's where my military journey began. Let's see, Lackland Air Force Base, 1985, U.S. Air Force, and I looked a lot better back then for sure. Let's see here.
Haven't changed a bit.
So the thing that dawned on me back then, as I ran into hurdles trying to gainfully be employed, um, uh, where the one word that I would share is relevance. You've got to make your resume, your cover letter, and your communication highly relevant in civilian terms. And one of the obstacles that you're going to run into today as you apply for different positions is that, of course, everyone is leveraging AI. And one way that human resources and hiring managers and hiring departments are leveraging AI is to use it as a sifter. So when you submit a resume and a cover letter online to a job that looks perfect for you, you may not even make it past first base. Um, and this is going to become more important as we go on, but they have AI in place to basically kick out anything that's not highly relevant to the job description. And to make it relevant requires like a change in mindset. Especially if you've been in the military for a long time, um, you've learned to speak a certain way, to think a certain way, to act a certain way. And on all three fronts, those may not jibe with the organization that you're trying to prove that you'll be a valuable asset for. So as in the military, it's often achievement oriented is how we talk about ourselves. I did this, I did that. But that's not how you should present yourself for a job opportunity. I would encourage you to look at metrics first, like metrics that matter, because that's how all of these organizations, especially in the Fortune 500, this is how they make these go, no go decisions on resumes. So I think a lot of military people have a way of diminishing their impact in the military down to like a thing that they did. Well, that's not really you, and that's not really your value. It's important to remember to frame it in a way that will align or map to civilian equivalents. So instead of responsible for vehicle maintenance, you can embellish that to be much more impressive and more relevant to the job by saying you directed maintenance for X value of a fleet, so many vehicles, achieving a 98% operational readiness rate over 24 consecutive months. These are the sorts of metrics that I would encourage you to go back through your life and kind of drag them out and reframe them, because I think a lot of people do themselves a disservice by, like I said, diminishing it and just saying, this is what I did, but that what you did is not the impact you had, is my point. So focus on things like budget size, team size, percentage of efficiency improved, how you got through tough times when your staff was reduced, how you overcame challenges. These kinds of things become super impressive. Your security clearances, if you have them, that's like a great gold star to have on you, especially if you're going to apply to defense contractors like Raytheon, Lockheed, Boeing, any of those companies. If you have a clearance, highlight it at the top of your resume, because it's going to make you stand out and at least make it through that first pass. Cross-functional leadership. This is important in the civilian world, and you're doing it in the military. It's not obvious. So in the military, you often work with people from different units, branches, or even different countries, which is awesome. So I was a member of the U.S. Air Force, but interestingly enough, I never reported to the U.S. Air Force. I worked for the Marine Corps first, the Navy second, and the U.S. Army third. I never had a direct report or an officer in my own service. We were in what's called a purple suit environment, Armed Forces Broadcasting. But this is actually a plus if you spin it correctly. This kind of malleability and ability to navigate through that kind of architecture from an organizational standpoint is a plus. It's just, again, important that you frame it correctly. So you would highlight coordinated with 5 or more external agencies to synchronize logistics for X number of personnel. And the corporate translation is you managed cross-functional communications between internal departments and third-party vendors to ensure project milestones were met. So again, we're just kind of backing away and we're going up to 10,000 feet and we're saying on the left, I have what I did in the military. Now, how do I frame it in a way that maps directly and matches and amplifies the relevance of me as a candidate for that particular opportunity? This is a big one, crisis management and adaptability. This is like table stakes in the military, but it's hard to find in the civilian world. I can tell you, I've been a hiring manager several times in the last decade. And, we often say that we would rather hire people with grit or adaptability or the ability to weather the storm or navigate a not so clear environment rather than hire somebody who has the technical capabilities, because those can be trained. But grit and adaptability are really tough to train. And again, this is something you're walking away from the military with in your back pocket that you may not think is super valuable. But like a key phrase here, thrived in high pressure, ambiguous environments, making rapid decisions that reduced organizational risk. If you're applying, for instance, for a job at a startup, it could be a big startup, $1 billion valuation with hundreds of millions of dollars behind them. They would be really interested in people who can say this key phrase here, because a startup environment is by its very nature high pressure and ambiguous. Things aren't figured out yet. So are you a person who can figure things out? And if you are, then be proud of that, and make sure it's part of your statements about yourself. Professional development and certifications. Yeah, you have probably a lot of these. I mean, I remember I had to do lots of ancillary training and get certifications for various capabilities within my MOS back in the military. Drag those out and find the ones that are relevant for the position that you're applying for, and highlight those for sure. Resume checklist. I'm sharing this because I am currently searching for my next place to have an impact. And the approach to resumes changes about every 5 years, like what people are looking for in a good resume changes. So this is where I'm coming from today. Although I'm not transitioning from the military, I will share that your resume should be 2 pages max. A lot of my friends that I served with in the military, they have bios that are a mile long. No one's going to read it. Nobody cares. Get to the point. 1 page is better, but 2 pages max. And again, each thing that you list on your resume, you should focus on the impact you had, especially include any measurable analytical proof like metrics tied to your impact. And if you don't know these, then you might have to go interview some people you used to work with and have discussions around it. But it's worth the effort to drag that stuff out. I remember when I got out of the military, I was still speaking in military jargon and writing in military jargon. These folks most of them have no idea what you're talking about. So try to replace things like MOS or NCOIC with the relevant civilian equivalent. Use a professional summary instead of an objective. Here's an example: operations leader with 8 years of experience in. Summarize without it being military specific. Always think through the lens of the hiring manager, who likely may have no idea what your military jargon is. And then create a core competencies section. And this is the same for your LinkedIn profile. You want to populate it with keywords, because all search that recruiters do today is based on keywords. So you can use AI to tell you what the most popular search terms are for the position you're applying for. And then you want to backtrack from there and make sure that your resume and your LinkedIn profile reflects those, which will help it surface to these recruiters. LinkedIn, by the way, is one of my favorite tools. I use it to sell to customers. I use it to find a new job. I have around 10,000 contacts, first-person contacts in my LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn forever. I'm sort of a prolific poster on LinkedIn. It's where I develop my personal brand, but it's also the #1 recruiting tool. And so it's important for you to spend time, and you can do this on the couch on the weekend, connect with recruiters, anyone who's recruiting in the area that you're trying to gain employment in. You can do quick searches of the target companies that you think you want to work for, and you can probably find the hiring managers, even though they're not going to be in the job description. It's a really good bet. You should connect with them as well. And also, don't forget everyone you already know. It doesn't matter who they are or what their status is or what level of management they're in. You can all help each other by amplifying your footprint, by leaning on each other, because that's just the way LinkedIn works. So the more people you know, the more people you're connected with, the more value it's going to return to you. And when you're looking for a job, don't forget to ask your first person connections for introductions to anyone they might be connected with in that company. And LinkedIn will show you if they're connected with anyone at the company you're applying to. So this would be my number one tool. It is today. I'm spending a lot of time on it. Once you're connected with someone, one way to stand out, and I'm passionate about this because I've been selling online video technology for more than 2 decades. One of the best ways to stand out is that after you're connected to someone on LinkedIn, first person, say a hiring manager accepts your connection request, you can send a video as a message in LinkedIn to that person. Just record it on your laptop or your phone. Short, sweet, head and shoulders shot, decent lighting, and hit some highlights about you. Why are you interested in this position, and what might set you apart? What you would like them to pay attention to. Yeah, always highlight your value relevancy to the position. And what that means is that may be different from company to company or position to position. So what I do is actually leverage AI as my secret weapon. There's all kinds of them: Gemini, ChatGPT, Grok. I like Gemini. It works really well for this process that I'm talking about. So the quality you get out of AI is based on the quality of your prompt. And most people just ask questions because they think they're in a search. It's not search. It's literally massive intelligence. And it has immediate random access to all of the data you would want to have access to. You just have to use the right key to unlock it. So here's an example of how I prompt Gemini, which is Google's AI. Act as my employment consultant. Here's my resume attached, which you can attach. And this is the job posting, and just put a link in there to the job posting. Rewrite my resume to be highly relevant to the job description and create a similarly relevant and highly compelling cover letter. It'll do this in like 15 seconds, and you will be mind blown. Now, you might have to make a few edits, but it's going to be 99% ready to ship out the door. Most people just have one resume, and they send it to all these different places. You should take the time with AI to modify your resume so that it is super relevant to that particular position. And it's not just a generic resume that you use every time. I will have 24 different versions of my resume by the end of this week because I'm aligning my resume with exactly what they're asking for in the job posting. And so I've only been doing this for a week this time, and I've got 3 interviews with hiring managers before the end of this week already scheduled. This really works. That's really it, I think, for my slides. But what I would finally say to you is that I'm a huge believer in what's called the law of attraction. It is easy for you to slip into a negative mindset and a place where you start doubting your value. Like, am I really going to pull this off? I will tell you, and some members of my family think it's hokey, but I have literally imagined my life. I imagine my successes first. Believe in your heart, see it, feel it, speak in active tense. I am getting this job. They are going to call me. And visualize it with absolute clarity. I grew up in a highly impoverished family in Lansing, Michigan. I lived in a 600 square foot house. There were 7 people living in that house. And all I heard my entire childhood was why we can't do better. And I refused to believe it. So I would encourage you, while you're going on this journey, also read books, watch videos that are motivational, that talk about the law of attraction. Tony Robbins is one of my favorites. You need this, and don't worry about if people think you're hokey or not. You've got to combat the negative with positive, overwhelming positive, repetition, repetition, repetition. And be super confident, because you as a candidate are probably, if you word these things and the cover letters and the resumes right, and by the way, have a cheat sheet with you when you do get the call, have 3 things on a Post-it note on your screen. I want to make sure that I get this out. And you speak about your value and your desire to make an impact. Nobody cares that you want to join their team. They want to know that you're excited to make an impact, a positive impact. So I'm running on and on, but I cannot overstate the importance of protecting your mental attitude while you go through this, because every time you fail, it's just one less way to fail. You're getting closer to success. Now I was going to read through these. I had some questions, I think, in the chat.
Yeah, we have a bunch of hands raised, Sean, so we can get to them if you'd like. Which
Yeah.
I'm also from Lansing, Michigan, which is kind of crazy.
Oh my goodness.
So
No
yeah,
one,
that's insane.
no, I've
Small
never met
world.
anyone from Lansing, Michigan.
Me either. Wild. Katie, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Sean. Thank you for all the good information. Looking back, what key habits or approaches helped you excel in creative roles under tight deadlines and high expectations?
That's a good question. That is going to be answered with a. So I'll tell a quick story. So I was a video editor in the creative world for a major television network in 1990. They hired me at the beginning of Gulf War I, and I was stuck in kind of a really boring position, and I knew that I had more value than that. We were editing video with videotape, which is old school. They don't do that anymore. But that's the way we did it. And it was called linear editing, which took forever. It took about 3 hours to edit a 5-minute segment. And that's if you were super good. And then a company called Avid dropped off a pallet of equipment in the middle of our department, which sat there for 2 weeks. And I asked my boss, what is this? He said, oh, it's some way to edit video on a computer. And I said, well, what are we going to do with it? He said, nothing. Nobody wants to touch it. I said, well, why is it here? He goes, they're hoping we'll demo it, or we'll use it and we'll love it, and then we'll buy it. I said, is anybody going to put it together? He said, no. I said, do you mind if I do? I was working the overnight shift. So every night during my lunch, I went down the hall and I unboxed all of this equipment. I had no idea what it was. I never used a computer before. I hooked it all up using this phone book thick manual, and I took video from a videotape machine and put it on a computer screen for the first time in my life. And I literally said, game over. I've just seen the future. Well, I had 50 peers in that department who were unwilling to take the time to investigate this new thing, or even think that it might be a road to a better future. So I would tell you that my answer is always be open to changing, embracing new technology or new methods. Because if you're open-minded, in my case, a year later, the Avid company offered to double my salary to hire me away from Turner Broadcasting to train people on how to use this technology. I've always had a hyper level of curiosity, and I've always been open to the reality that I can do anything. All I need is the right information. All I need is time. All I need is my own effort. And it's true for you too. Any of you can do anything. So my answer, I don't know if that's helpful, but my answer is don't be closed-minded. When you get a spark about maybe a better way, embrace it for a while and give it an opportunity to prove to you that it's not a valuable investment of your time before you just poo-poo it and walk away.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was a really cool story. Albert, go ahead.
First off, good morning, and thank you for taking your time out to be with us. And actually, if it's okay, I got two questions.
Sure.
Okay. The first one is, as a hiring manager, apart from military jargon, is there any other keywords that you advise we should stay away from?
Just it's really important to just avoid things that talk about tasks you did.
Mhm.
I see this all the time. Did this, did this, used this software, leveraged this technology. Those are not impressive. What you can reword everything on your resume to be more relevant to the job at hand that you're going for.
Mhm.
But also just remember the word value. Like,
Okay.
and then put yourself in their shoes. Like if you were hiring for this position, what would you want as a base standard to say this person's in the go file versus the forget about it file? I think, it's really important how you say what your value is and get away from listing tasks that you achieved.
Got it. Thank you. And the second question is, after media, when you launched your own streaming media company, what motivated you to take that specifically? And how did you raise the capital without a business degree? I think a bunch of us are finding ourselves in the same position. I could definitely use advice on that part.
Wow, this is impressive. Somebody went and actually read my profile. Look, I have been blessed with a storied professional life. Um, um, so in 1997 or 8, I was leaving church with my family, and the night before, on Saturday night, I had produced a special called Perfect People, which was a documentary about the Human Genome Project, which was just beginning back then, but it's long been finished now. But back then it was science fiction, and I produced it, and it won a bunch of awards. And I was leaving church, and a guy pulled up next to me as I went out to get the car to come back and get my little kids. The guy pulled up alongside me, and I'll never forget, it was a red 560 SL Mercedes convertible. And he said, "Hey, are you Sean McMann?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "My name's Herb Newton. We go to the same church." And I said, "Oh, cool. I've never seen you. It's great to meet you." He goes, "Hey, did you make that special last night that I watched called Perfect People?" I said, "Yes, I did." He goes, "Would you have breakfast with me?" And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because I'm starting an internet company, and it's going to be about video, and I need a video guy. You look like a pretty good video guy." Well, video guy is pretty broad, right? And you'll be interested to know that this guy had just sold the biggest, the most successful Toyota dealership in the world. It was called Atlanta Toyota. He sold it for $140 million in the last 6 months or so before we met. And where did he meet me for breakfast? It was on him at the Waffle House. He was worth like $140 million. But he said, you're a video content guy. Do you have any ideas about the internet? And I said, "Yeah, I think a video is going to be a big deal on the internet." He goes, "Well, could you go give some thought around this? Because I'm just going to be an angel investor. We're going to have to go get more investors for sure. Will you give some thought to what you think would be a good business with video on the internet?" I was not a business major. I have never owned a business in my life. I went home, I downloaded a business plan template, a Word document from the web, and I just started writing. And I started pacing back and forth, getting excited and bouncing these ideas off myself. And then asking myself, is this really a way to generate money on the internet? Well, it must have been, because I took that business plan and I went on a nationwide roadshow and pitched it to like 25 different venture capital firms. At the last pitch, I was so exhausted and so sick of this process of telling people my great idea and having them shoot holes in it. I mean, it was dejecting. I knew going in These are like the smartest guys in the world when it comes to analyzing your business plan and whether or not that it's worth investing in. The last time I gave the pitch, I literally said, I don't really have a pitch, guys. If you've read the brief and you don't get it, then I can't help you. And I walked out of the room, and they chased me out of the room. And then they gave me $10 million to start my company. That was one of the biggest. PricewaterhouseCoopers called it one of the top 10 venture deals in the Southeast that year, all from a business plan that was written by a guy who didn't know a damn thing about business. And all I can tell you is that risk is inherent. You have to get rid of complete risk aversion. The biggest opportunities in my life have been wrapped in challenge and have looked like problems. They've looked unachievable. But if you open that box that has challenge on the front of it, inside is a gift many times. There's nothing I've ever achieved commercially, financially, relationship-wise, that the really great stuff always presents itself as a problem or a challenge or a setback. That's just the way it works in my life anyway. Did that help you?
Absolutely did. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Victor, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, sir. Thanks again for all the information. It's been actually really great. This kind of goes into a little bit of what you were already kind of talking on, but what advice would you give to somebody who's, for instance, like myself, who's retiring from the military after 20 years, doesn't really truly know what they want to do? I know we're here in Seven Eagle throughout the last week or so, we've been talking about doing some stuff that you're kind of passionate about that you would do even if you didn't get paid for, kind of thing. So like for myself, for instance, I did communications for most of my career, and ended up with more on the instructional side. But as a passionate thing, like I even do it as a stress reliever. I've done, and it's just for fun kind of thing, but I do like video editing. So, and I know that's something I would love to do just because it just brings joy to me, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So what advice would you give to somebody who maybe wants to get into a different career field or doesn't even know what career field they want after the military?
There is a guy on the Dave Ramsey show. You'd have to listen to the Dave Ramsey show. I can't remember his name. It might be Adam. It's one of the team members on the Dave Ramsey show, has a best-selling book about this thing where how do I find the right thing to do? And he's got like 60 questions in this book that you have to go through. I'm sorry, I don't remember the guy's name, but it's a best-selling book about finding aligning yourself with something that comes from your heart instead of just doing a job. And it helps you uncover exactly what those things might be. But as it relates to when you're kicking around ideas about, like, I like to edit video. Well, I've been editing video since video was grainy, and I mean, I learned to edit on film with a razor blade. That's how old I am. But I'll caution you, I also love to cook. And I'm a really good cook. And every time I have friends over, the natural statement they make is, you should open a restaurant. It wouldn't be joyful for me. It would be work then. So if video editing is joyful for you, I will caution you that, you might find that after you're doing it for customers on a deadline repetitively, it might lose some of its luster. However, that brings me to another side of this answer. Opportunity is all around you. Don't box yourself into, I have to get a job with a big company with great benefits. Opportunity is around you. I'll give you an example. So I have a house on Johns Island in South Carolina. It's a big piece of property, and I wanted to light it with outdoor lighting. Well, I got estimates. The cheapest estimate I got to light my yard, we're not talking about any major construction. The cheapest estimate I got was $7,000. The guy up the street spent $10,000 to light his yard. So I went to Lowe's and spent $700 on all of the equipment, retail, and spent a day, one afternoon, installing my own lighting. And when I sat down after that job and saw how beautiful it was, I went, oh my God, even buying this stuff retail, if I did 2 or 3 of these jobs a month, I could make 15 grand a month. There are things that are right in front of your face that you may never have. So I'll bring it back to the video editing thing. I create free video ads for local businesses in Charleston. I do it gratis because I like the business owners. I created a video ad for a farmer's market down the street from me 2 years ago. I went over there and spent 15 minutes shooting video, chopped it up into 6 different clips, put it on their Facebook page, and I changed their business. I have the saved text. I think I posted it on LinkedIn. I'm sure I did. The story about how I did this. And I have the actual text. The guy's telling me we just had the #1 revenue day in the history of this farm. And this is a 50-year-old farm. Imagine if you could walk into a place and say, hey, because here's what they don't know in small businesses. They know nothing about marketing. Most small businesses just really are challenged on that front. They don't have time. They're too busy running the business. They don't know how to get people in the door. The way to get people in the door now is video, video, video. So a guy like you could do an experiment. He could say, hey, I'll make you a free video ad for your Facebook page and your Instagram and your X account. I'll do it completely for free, but we'll keep an eye on the metrics and see if it drives traffic to your business. We'll ask people to mention the video, and you keep track of everybody who comes in that mentions the video. If this free one works, then you're going to book 6 more with me over the next year at a cost of whatever, a few $100. You do that with 10 or 20 customers, now you're making a living doing video editing. So again, I'll just say, if I lost the ability to get a job in the corporate world tomorrow, it wouldn't even bother me. I would start doing what I just said to you. I would start a lighting company. I would start a company that sprays for deer or something like that. These people print money, and they're kind of, don't forget the trades either. They make massive amounts of money, at least in Charleston. A welder? Are you kidding me? You can go learn welding in 3 weeks at a tech college, and it pays super well. So I guess my message is, yeah, you should do something that you like to do. At least give it a shake. And if you're retired, you have some foundational ability to pay your bills. Go experiment, man. You only live once.
I love that answer. Emily, go ahead.
Yes, hello. Transitioning from the Air Force to television, what were the biggest surprises or challenges you faced?
Oh, you guys asked some good questions. I'll tell you honestly, the biggest challenge for me when I got out of the military was that I was known in the military for having massive amounts of military bearing. I wanted to be a Marine, to be honest with you. I don't know how I ended up in the Air Force. Luckily, I worked for the Marine Corps, but I was really attracted to discipline. And if I told you I was going to be there at 7 a.m., it was 6:45 is as late as I would allow myself to show up. And my stuff was always squared away. My boots shined like a mirror. I was always promoted ahead of my peers. Just very regimented. And I enjoyed that about the military. And I also enjoyed that we had things like, I don't know about the other services, but when you went to a new duty station in the Air Force, the first thing you had to do was sit in a room by yourself and read their SOPs, standard operating procedure books, sometimes a stack of books. And so we expected that. Well, when I started my job in television in Atlanta, it was chaos. I literally stood there the first night on the job because I was working overnight shift. I thought, how do they even do this? How do they get anything done here? This is chaos. it's just chaos. So that's the thing that surprised me the most. And it was very hard for me to get around the fact that I no longer had structure that I had in the military. And frankly, I could no longer really count on my peers the way I did in the military, because you just counted on people and they were there and you were there for them and that kind of stuff. It's a little more dog eat dog out here in the civilian world. That was hard for me to overcome. It was also hard for me to get my arms around all of the choices in a grocery store. One time I had to leave the grocery store because I was having like an anxiety attack, and my wife was like, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "There's too many choices." Like the BX overseas, I had one choice. I just got through there in 10 minutes. And now I'm surrounded by anything anybody could ever want. That's a memory that stands out. It was overwhelming um, how much abundance there was here. And it was also, it was just really hard for me to learn to relax on the, you know, the laissez-faire kind of approaches that civilians had to some things that previously for me had been very structured. And it was uncomfortable.
Amazing questions all around today. Queen, go ahead.
Hi, Sean. I have a question, but first I would like to say that your optimism is quite refreshing, so thank you for that. The question I have, what were the biggest lessons from starting and scaling a company that you carry into your current work?
Okay. How you manage pressure. So it's really cool to send out a press release telling the world that you just got $10 million invested in your company. But with that $10 million came an overwhelming amount of pressure to perform and to turn that investment into a return on investment, which means that my investors walk away with more money than they gave me. And all of that was on my shoulders and the shoulders of my partner, who was also a Air Force veteran. I had a tendency back then to internalize pressure to the point where it would make me ineffective. I would really not be able to operate very well because I was constantly thinking about the pressure to perform. And I replaced that back then, and this happened around that time. I replaced that with the good mental food that I mentioned at the top of the call. You have to combat these feelings of, I'm under pressure, I have to make this happen. You have to replace them with calm and confidence in yourself, confidence that things are going to turn out okay. And don't forget to, don't ever stop treating people well because you're under pressure. I learned that kind of in that process of starting our own company. I was kind of a jerk, and I realized it. Like, it was a real learning moment for me. I was like, God dang, dude, who would want to work for you? I remember saying that to myself. And I became a nicer person. And believe in people, believe in yourself, belief. The world will give you 1,000 reasons to believe you can't do something. It's up to you you got to be the other voice in the room saying, not only can I, but I will. Like I write in my LinkedIn profile, I spoke at the Man School, is a thing up in Nashville, where they bring men in every Saturday, and they have speakers of various vocations and stuff to try and motivate and help these mostly younger men. And I was giving a presentation last summer there, and my first slide was, what's the most encouraging thing someone can say to you? And everybody was raising their hands. You can do it. I believe in you. All these kinds of things. And I said, that never did it for me. What did it for me was they told me I couldn't. Once you told me I couldn't do something, it was like igniting a rocket booster. I just love it when people tell me I can't achieve something because I've never done it before, because I didn't go to school for it, because you don't have the pedigree, you weren't raised that way, you didn't grow up in the right family. Yeah, there's a million reasons why people can easily confirm in their own minds that there's no way you can do something. For me, the words "you can't" are gold, just a gift, because it just makes me roll my sleeves up and dig deeper. And so I would say starting a business can be stressful. Make sure that you're still kind, but don't spread your pressure that you feel around, because it's toxic. And a brand new company like the one we started, where there is no precedent. I mean, it was internet video, for God's sake. There was Mark Cuban was doing it. There was no one else really. But if you're starting a business that's got some predecessors, don't forget to learn from their mistakes and study their story and make sure you don't repeat those mistakes. We didn't have that, so we made lots of mistakes.
Christopher, go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you for being here with us, Sean. It's been a real pleasure listening to you and all your great stories. One that particularly caught my ear was when you were working in video editing. I too had experience with that, working in public cable television back in my hometown of Irvine. And basically, when you found in that particular job, it wasn't really for you because they were kind of being behind, and you decided there's better offers out there. Once you were given that better offer, how did you go up to your boss and let them know? And this speaks in general with how you want to let your current employer know this isn't working out. I found better pastures, which is the best way to approach that.
Yeah, it's a great question, Christopher. I just went through this last May. After a decade with a company called Kaltura, I just lost my passion for what I was doing there, and I had to get out. They would have likely never fired me. I was always one of the top performers. And 10 years at a company is very rare. I mean, go browse around LinkedIn. You don't find many people stick around anywhere for 10 years. And I was longing for a new chapter. I wanted to go flex my muscles again. Everything that I did there, I'd done it so repetitively over such a long time that it was rote and it was boring to me. I wanted to push myself into a new place where I knew nothing, where I had to learn again, where I had to, because without applying pressure to a muscle, it's going to atrophy. And I think a lot of people avoid applying new pressure to their muscles, including their mind muscle, their faith muscle. Don't avoid the pressure, because the pressure builds strength. And so when you're talking to a previous employer, like, how do you say to someone, yeah, I've been here 10 years, but I'm out? It's like, and in my case, there was a lot of revenue tied to my head, right? And that's a financially damaging moment for the company to lose a guy like me. What did I do? Thank them. Let them know how much it's about the people more than the company. So I spoke to every person that I thought was someone I should let know that why, I'm leaving and why. If they offer you a counter offer, say no, because a counter offer is just going to make that board you're walking off the ship over the water on a little longer, but you're still going to go in the water. Well, once you announce you're leaving, I would caution anybody against accepting a counter offer, because a counter offer is the quickest and easiest way for them to stop you from going. But they've already made up their mind that you don't want to be there. So it's probably not going to work out right. At least in my case, it never did. I took a counter offer a couple of times. Be respectful. I believe in never burning bridges. Don't talk negatively about the company you're leaving. build them up and thank them for all that they've done for you. And it's not about them. It's not about them. I had to say that to Kaltura last May. It's not about you. It's not about this company. It's about my need to push the envelope a little further than I feel like I can do here. Did that help? Or
Yeah, that helped out a lot. I mean, it sounds like the basic way, of course, that you want to make this not about them, just about you as an employee need to move on to greener pastures. But yeah, I figure it's best to keep that friendly rapport there because we're all linked together online. Sooner or later, we're going to meet up with people we once worked with. So yeah, you don't want to create any animosity.
this is a big one for me. You can go through my LinkedIn posting and you're not going to find any bashing of a company ever. I applaud them. I celebrate them. Bashing my old company doesn't do me any good at all. And remember, your company you work at now may not be the company you're at 5 years from now. And the person who works for you in this company may be your boss at the next company. This can happen. I've seen this happen. So if you drag a bunch of dirt behind you or you leave a wake of bad tidings, it will become karma that will come back to haunt you in the future.
Yeah.
The other thing is you want to protect what I call my personal brand, right? I have a brand that has nothing to do with the company I work for. One guy at a recent speaking engagement called me a bucket filler. That's what I want people. I want people to think that I'm going to help them be better than they could be without my interaction with them. Your personal brand gives some thought to what you want people to think of you. And the way people speak about you when you're not in the room is really what's important. That's your brand. That's your reputation. You never want to post some rant on LinkedIn or Facebook about how pissed off you are at XYZ Corp. Even if they fire you, don't do it. It's deadly. So be protective of your personal brand. And your personal brand, in my mind, is how do people speak about you when you're not in the room? Hopefully it's positive stuff. There's just no good in taking the low road.
All right, guys, we have 6 more minutes. So I really want to fit in these last 3 questions. So Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll make this quick. Sean, appreciate you coming out and talking to us today. And I'm gonna date myself too. I came in the Army back in '97, so just wanted to see your perspective about the actual transition from the military to the civilian life. Do you feel it's better to, I guess, take a break before you start your transition, or just kind of dive right into the job market and just start from there? Just wanted to see what you thought about that.
Greg, if you have flexibility, if you can afford to take the time, I would take the time, man, especially if you've been in a long time, like if you're retiring. The guy next door to me, my next door neighbor, he's retiring from the FAA this year, but he spent 40 years, I think 43 years in a military environment. And he's doing what you talked about right now. He's just taking time off. And his name's Roy, great guy. I think that you need a moment to just let yourself settle into a place where you can be relaxed. Unless you have like an urgent need to go find a job immediately, I think some reflection time is probably mentally healthy. Like I'm doing that right now. I don't have to go get a job tomorrow. I'm talking with prospective employers, but I've spent a lot of time putting myself in a position where I don't have to have a job tomorrow. So I'm goofing off at the beach, right? I mean, you probably haven't relaxed a lot. You may not even know what it feels like to relax. But, you know, if you got a dog, take the dog for a long walk and just don't put pressure on yourself to think about, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? Now, if you have to get a job, then that changes that whole dynamic, right? Then you have to put on the belief cap and just go make it happen. And you can take some vacation a year into your next gig. But if you have the flexibility to take a little bit of time off, I think it's cathartic, personally.
All right. Good job. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
All right, Eric, go ahead.
Hey Sean, how you doing? Again, just like everybody else, we appreciate your candor and everything you've told us. My question is gonna be a little off. But what I want to ask is this: what has been your greatest downfall once you went through your career that has become one of your greatest successes? If you have one, I'll say that.
Oh, yeah, I do. So we talked about the fact that I started a company. I ran that company. It was called Media First. I hired a chief technology officer who was my best friend in the Air Force to come and be my chief technology officer. He was working at the Pentagon at the time. He became best friends with the chairman, the guy with the red Mercedes, and they became like that. And unbeknownst to me, he was really working this guy. So the chairman promoted him, my buddy, to be CEO of my company. So now I worked for my buddy who I brought in. I hired him, and now he was my boss. I was changing jobs, moving from business development and partner stuff to heading up sales. And I had developed a 5-year plan. And I was scheduled to review this plan with him some morning, can't remember which day of the week. And so I went to his office all excited with my spreadsheets and laid them out on a table. He got up and shut the door. He sat down at his desk and he said, I know you think you're here to go over your 5-year plan, but that's not what we're here for. And I stood up and immediately knew what he was doing. He was firing me. So I got fired from the company that I raised $10 million to start. I had 2 little kids at home, and I had just put a down payment on a giant house because I thought I was going to be the next internet millionaire. And I already had a house. And for the next 6 months, you couldn't find a job. In 2001, there were no jobs. Didn't matter what you did. After the dot-com explosion, it was terrible. So I kept applying for whatever sales jobs I could find or get leads on through buddies of mine that were recruiters. Keep in mind, I had 4 mortgages at that point. I could not sell my house. You couldn't sell a house in 2001 either. I got up I got up one morning and was talking with my wife, and she said, what are we going to do? I said, you know what? Let's just boil this down to what it is. It's just 2 choices that I have. I have 2 choices. I can give up or I can move forward. And this is after months. I was ultimately out of a job for 6 months. So then I sat back and asked myself, well, if you're getting these results doing job hunting the way everyone else does, maybe you need to change how you're doing this. So I made a list of companies, regardless of whether they had an opening or not. This is a great question, by the way. I made a list of the dream companies that I would like to work for at that time, whether they had an opening or not. Most of them did not. And I wrote a letter to the C-suite, the CIO, the CEO, the CTO, the COO, telling them why they should make a position for me. And for one particular company was called Global Streams in St. Louis. I said, you're selling your technology to the wrong people for the wrong reasons at the wrong price. And I can add measurably to your bottom line, worth a conversation. They sent me a round trip plane ticket, met me at the airport in St. Louis with a limousine, took me to headquarters. I spent 11 and a half hours interviewing with every senior person in the company, and they gave me a job offer on my way out the door. I came home the happiest man in the world because we were under immense pressure for lots of months. And that was the lowest. Being fired from a company that I literally created, being fired by who was previously a best friend of mine, and then burning through my 401k to pay all of my bills. I couldn't get rid of the old house. I was just seeing my whole world crumble. But again, in that statement about you only have two choices is real simple. And that's how I approach every challenge today. Right now, I'm unemployed, right? But I have a choice. I can just give up or I can move forward. And if I'm going to move forward, then let's make it fun. Let's leverage the free AI tools that we have to be better about it. And let's feed ourselves emotionally the food we need to stay pumped up, focused, and happy. But, that was a great question because that was the lowest. I hadn't thought about that in a while. Thanks for taking me to such a dark place.
Sorry
No
to bring
problem.
up
Anytime.
such a bad moment right here at the end, Sean, but I think that was a really good way to end it off. We have our next speaker here to speak. Thank you so much today for all of the advice and all of the experience. You have a really, really interesting story. I know I learned a lesson or two today, so this was awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Good luck.